Have you ever wanted to see the coolest, cheapest, most relaxing and comforting PC build on the entire internet? Well, I found it for you, and we're going to watch it right now. This, as you can see, is a video by OzTalks HW. He doesn't upload a ton anymore, but he has a couple really great videos, and today we're going to be watching this one. It's just called A Calming $500 Gaming PC Build Yellow Heart Emoji. All right, let's go.
Long time no see. This right here is a $500 computer featuring a Ryzen 5 5600 and a GTX 1660 Super.
That's actually
If you
really
don't know
good
what that
deal. 500
means,
bucks.
it's pretty fast.
Yeah.
So you can play games like Cyberpunk and Elden Ring and even stream without it really breaking a sweat.
Cyberpunk
And
probably
personally, I think it looks pretty good. Now you may not be able to build this computer exactly because of stock inventory, but I'll show you how to build something comparable to this at around the same price. Teach a man to fish. Or whatever. And in classic OzTalks fashion, we'll try to do it in a very relaxing way.
Thank God.
Let's
I
get
need that.
started.
I need that
So
in
to
my
kick
life.
things off, I decided to go
really
with the Ryzen 5
like this guy's-
5600, and you can get
I like
it
this
for
guy's voice.
$150 on Newegg.
just
right
seems
now.
so
it's
chill.
6 cores, 12 threads, and it's a phenomenal entry-level CPU, and it'll definitely last you a long time, even though the
It's a good one to go with.
platform it's
Ryzen
on
5
is technically
5600
dead.
is-
But one of the main reasons why I actually decided to go with this processor is because the platform is so cheap right now. And so I got this A320 motherboard,
yeah.
the A320M from MSI, for only $29 shipped on hardware swap. That is a great deal for
Yeah.
money right now. Even though
Yeah,
it's not the
$30
highest quality,
motherboard, that's-
it'll definitely work. And the cool thing about it too is for not much more, you
Here's the thing. I'm like a boutique builder, so I always, when I build for somebody else, I'm like, I don't want to go cheap, even if they have a small budget. So it's really tough to build like a $500 rig. But I guess you get what you pay for, right? If you're only going to pay $500 for a PC, you're going to only be able to spend so much on certain components. I never go for like the lowest tier motherboard. Like this is like the A320 is like the like bottom trim level. It works. I just even like B450, I'm like, ooh, it's all right, I guess. But again, I guess it's a $500 build. $500 build. You can't really
get an
afford.
A520 board or even
to
some
spend much more
B450
money than
boards
that.
brand new for like $50, $60 right now.
30 bucks
so
is
even
a
though
steal,
the
though.
i3-12100 is a cheaper alternative, it's probably going to be around the same price as this $150 Ryzen 5 plus a cheap-ish motherboard. Now to pair the processor and the motherboard, I just have 16 gigs of RAM, two 8GB sticks, 3200 megahertz.
16 gigs is
16. And
that's
if that
fine,
sounds like
you
gibberish
know?
to you, don't worry. It basically just means it's good enough.
Yep.
RAM is getting really cheap. DDR4
RAM is-
memory, so
this video's a couple years old. RAM is super cheap. I don't know what did he pay for
you can
this?
probably get this for like $45 to $50.
Yeah, actually, RAM hasn't changed too much from that, but you can get like Corsair, like name brand, like bigger brand, bigger name RAM, which honestly I know doesn't make much of a difference as long as the chips are the same. But you can get RAM really cheap these days. It's quite awesome.
I think that's about the price that I paid. Now storage is also getting really cheap as well. So I just bought a 512 gig SSD for like $29 on Amazon with Prime shipping. Now you
It's
can
so
go with an
easy to build a
M.2
PC
drive,
these days.
or
If
you
you're
can go
paying for
NVMe,
like a
and that
pre-built
basically
from
just
like
means
NZXT or
it's gonna
iBuy
be
Power
smaller
or anything,
and
any of those
faster,
big system
respectively,
integrators,
but a
you're getting
SATA
scammed.
SSD is going to be more than enough for the casual gamer entry level.
They would charge you $100 for
and
that
for only
thing.
$30, that's a really good price. Now, the component that a lot of you are probably wondering is the video card. And I'm happy to say that we got a really solid deal here. It's a GTX 1660 Super.
1660
6 gig,
Super is
and I got it for $115
A
used on Reddit.
decent graphics
Now,
card for playing
we've
games.
all gone through the pain
You know?
of very expensive and low stock video cards, but that's really not the case anymore. You can get video cards used for a really good price. And so even if you can get a 1660
And he's
Super
right about
for
that, especially
115 like I
nowadays. You
did,
could
can
go
definitely get
find like a
5600
3060. You could probably find a 3060 on eBay or Facebook Marketplace. That's like legit because there's just so many of them now for close to 150, maybe 200 bucks.
which is a little bit faster for about
Which would,
$150 on eBay.
you know, not be a
or
huge
you
jump
can
in
take it
performance,
locally, or
honestly, from a
GTX
1660
1070,
Super,
which is
but you
about
have
the same
generational improvements,
performance for
which,
about
in my
150
opinion,
as
would
well.
be totally
Zach
worth it.
also tweeted how he recently bought a video card, and just a few days later, the same card goes for like $20 cheaper. And so that's just how the market is right now. Things are getting cheap, they're readily available, so you really have nothing to worry about. And to power the entire machine, we have the Corsair CV650. I actually bought this from GameStop a while ago for about $42. It's going
Really?
to do everything we need to do and be cheap while doing it, like price-wise. I guess it'll also kind of be cheap quality-wise, but good enough cheap.
I mean, the Corsair
Honestly, one of
CV650
my
is not
favorite
bad.
parts about this build is the case. So we have the Thermaltake
I actually,
Versa
I really like this case. It's like a workstation desktop case, kind of, but
H18.
you still
which is a really
get the vented
nice
front, so
budget
you can
computer
actually see
case.
the RGB on your
And
fans
thankfully
if you
it's
have
back
it
in stock
if you have it
because
turned
a
on.
lot
It
of
looks
times
nice. That
it
candle
goes out
makes
of
me
stock
nervous.
pretty quickly, and that's a good sign.
gonna heat
It means
things
it's a
up for
pretty
no
good
reason.
case. It has holes in the front, so you have some good airflow. It has a power supply basement, so you have a place to put all your wires, which would be very good for the power supply that we have.
Correct.
It has tempered glass, so you can see the inside.
Power supply basements are great, like shrouded power supplies.
For a radiator. It's overall just a
That's a
really good
must for me.
case, and it's
Cases
only
that
about
don't have
$55. And then to top
a
everything
PSU
off,
shroud,
I just
I don't
have
like.
some fans from up here, which you've probably heard of the brand before, but it's 5-pack, 120 millimeter fans, RGB, $30. Cheap, gets the job done, and it's gonna give some airflow.
I would probably opt for better fans. I have not used those personally. I would imagine they don't push a lot of air. But also in a system like this, it's not going to get very hot anyway. You don't need premium airflow, especially if you have 5 of them. It's probably okay. But fans are not something you want to cheap out on.
I feel like it's a pretty good addition, though
It's-
not necessary. I highly recommend getting some fans.
You're going to want to be able to move air
let's
through
start
your
the build.
case, especially if you start putting higher end components that are going to get more hotter.
Alright, so we're gonna place the CPU in here. Be very careful not to.
Just scrape all the pins off first.
So we're just gonna lift.
Don't
the
do that. That was a
lever
joke.
And place it in.
Line up the little
The
corner
Ryzen
with the
logo
thing.
should be parallel to the socket. Now we're gonna install the CPU cooler, the AMD Wraith, and it does come with
Not a
thermal
bad
paste.
cooler either. If
already
you don't
pre-installed.
feel like
So you can
buying
totally
a
use
third-party
this thermal
cooler for a
paste. It will
processor
work
of this
fine. Personally, I
size?
tend to avoid it only because I think the thermal paste included can get kind of sticky. And if I ever need to remove the CPU for whatever reason, I don't want it to get stuck to my motherboard.
That's fair.
I'm just gonna take some isopropyl alcohol.
I'm gonna use his own thermal
and I'm
paste.
just gonna.
You don't have to do this. This is a personal preference thing for him.
Oh, this one doesn't look nearly as crusty as the other ones that I've dealt with. All right, so if you don't have thermal paste, then now we were going to put a little bit on here.
I would just use the pre-installed thermal
But
paste. I've
again,
never had
the
issues
CPU
with it
cooler that comes
before.
with the CPU will have thermal paste on it already.
But like I was
You
saying,
don't
that
need
cooler
to
is
do
not bad,
this if you
especially
bought
like
the
I said, if
CPU
you're just
brand new
going
and
with
it came with a cooler.
a Ryzen 5
I
5600.
just want to make that clear. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've installed a Wraith cooler. These
It's pretty
actually
good.
have to come off.
Yep.
Pattern. So then all 4 screws are at least partially screwed in.
Couldn't be
and
an
then we're
Intel
gonna
mount, it's an
finish it
AMD
off
motherboard.
by tightening each.
I'm so smart.
And we can just do this now. We'll just plug in the CPU cooler.
Yeah.
So the CPU
Cooler
fan is
works.
right here.
I've used it before.
And then it's always
I
easier to cable
generally
manage as you go, in
like
my
to
opinion.
go get another, like a
Now,
third-party
we
cooler.
can install the RAM. So you're just
Something
gonna line
that
up the
is a little bit
notch
better,
on
but
the RAM stick.
if you don't have the
with the
budget for it
notch
and you're using a
RAM slot.
lower
Then
end
open up these
processor,
clips.
those work fine.
So we have
Easiest
our main
installation
platform
in the
built.
entire
Here it
build is the RAM.
Honestly, I think it looks really nice. So now we're going to prep the case.
I just probably would have
and
gone
that
for
just
black
means that
RAM.
We're going to install the I/O shield for the motherboard. Any
Just
motherboard
because that's
standoff. We're gonna
kind
install
of
case
the
fans.
aesthetic of the entire
We're going
thing.
to
Is
install the power supply and start
black.
routing any cables that we can. I'm also going to try and find any system fans on the motherboard. So I see one here under the CPU battery. So I think that's the only case fan option that we have. And then we want the case, we want the fan of the power supply to be facing down so we can get airflow from the bottom. Now I'm gonna route just a few cables.
Cable management is one of the things
So
in
I might actually, I'll start with right here.
in building
and then
that
see.
is the most tedious, but it's also kind of really satisfying
This is going to be an
when you
exhaust
when you
fan,
do
so
a good
air's
job
gonna
when you can
blow
take the time to
this
do it.
way through the fan. This is the
It's
back.
definitely a choice you have
it's
to
gonna come
make.
up out
Some
here.
people opt to just not care about it, which I don't recommend. It can affect the performance of your computer, so you should care about it. But it is a decent amount of work, and I understand
Now
why
that all the
people don't
fans
like to
are
do it.
installed, we're going to route the
But
cables
also, who
later.
doesn't want it to
We
look
can go
real,
ahead
real
and
nice?
check the motherboard. Start installing that. So we have the I/O plate, and this is essentially
This is one of the worst parts,
going to fit like that.
because some of these I/O
Motherboard's
shields
gonna sit
do
like
not
this, so
like
we're
to
gonna install it
clip
that way.
into the into the hole on
And
the
then
case.
This is pretty hard
Oh,
to
he
see,
skipped showing
but
that.
they are
Those
motherboard
can be very
standoffs.
finicky,
They're these like hexagonal,
and you don't want to
little
like bend
fans
it
you
or
put
mess
the
it up
motherboard on,
because
and that's to
it
protect
needs to
the motherboard
then
from
fit
touching the metal
onto
of the
the
case
I/O
and
on the
shorting
motherboard.
something. Not sure if that's
So you have
gonna
to be kind
cover
of careful when
everything,
you
but we
install
can check and
those.
see. Okay, yeah, I think that covers everything.
Obviously,
Every
higher-end
hole on the
motherboards have
motherboard has a
integrated
standoff.
I/O shields. They're
So
already
we're good
attached, so you
to
don't have to
screw
worry
it in.
about that. You just line it up when you install it, and that's super easy.
And I really like the orange color on this. 'cause
Also,
it
some cases
complements
have, I don't know
the
if he
blue of
said
the
it,
RAM so
some
nicely.
cases in the center motherboard,
And then
like
this is
right
pretty
here,
hard to
this will be a
see,
peg,
but they are motherboard
because there's standoffs underneath.
They're these like
Yeah.
hexagonal
The
little
standoffs
fans
he's
that you
pointing
put
out
your
right now.
motherboard on, and that's to protect the motherboard from touching the metal of the case and shorting something. Not sure if that's gonna cover everything, but we can check and see.
Some
Okay, yeah, I
cases,
think that covers
this one in the
everything.
middle
Every hole on
will
the motherboard has a standoff.
be
So we're
a
good to
peg,
screw it in.
so you can actually set the motherboard on it, and it kind of helps hold it in place.
And I really like the orange
So you can mount the
color
other
on
ones,
this.
because otherwise it just sits there,
So
and
it
you have to like,
complements
it can
the
wobble
blue of the
around, and
RAM
it's
so
kind of hard to
nicely.
have lined up with the screw holes. So depending on your case, I think more and more nowadays
Pretty sure
have
we're gonna
that
turn it
center-
over.
that center screw hole is a peg, so that's actually really nice.
So SSD was installed. Now we're gonna start plugging stuff in. and
SSD
then we'll
mounting
end with the
It's
video
totally
part.
up to you
Plug
how
in
you
the
want to do it.
motherboard cable.
He obviously used one of the spots in the front. That's fine. You could put it on the back side. There's usually mounting spots if you don't want it visible in your case. You could mount it in one of the hard drive
think
slots
everything is plugged
if
in,
your
but
case
the
has hard drive
GPU.
slots. Just, those don't really
So I
matter.
line it up here. And then I noticed that it's going to be the second and the third slot. So those are the
So he
ones that
plugged
we're gonna
in
take out.
the motherboard power we saw. He plugged in the power and the data cable for the SSD, so that's fully installed. I don't remember seeing him plug in the motherboard or the CPU power. It looks like he did. And now he's deciding which of these covers on the back that he needs to take off when he installs the graphics card. And you can see right above where it says A320M Pro VH, these little silver spots right here. If you were to use an M.2 NVMe
and
SSD,
then we just
that's where
plug
you'd
it in.
install it.
This guy.
Just if you build a PC and you don't use a SATA SSD and you use an M.2, they're faster. Honestly, they're easier to install as well.
It's-
That's where it would
Doesn't
go.
this orange right here look so good with the orange on the video card and then the contrast?
It does kind of work, actually.
So nice. Anyway, computer's built.
And then he
Let's
plugged in the
put
power
this
from the or for the GPU. Looks like there was a hole from the power supply shroud underneath that he could run it up under.
cable was touching it.
Yeah, that's not
But
good.
it's working.
Yeah, it looked like his GPU power cable was hitting the fan as it
Finally
was spinning
completed
up.
the $500 computer, and I think it looks pretty good.
Hot take: RGB fans are great, but doing this like soft white is chef's kiss. That is, especially for something like this, where I feel like the whole build isn't decked out. The motherboard has like the brown colors in it still. The RAM is like this metallic blue. It's a Asus Tough GPU, which has like the gray and orange coloring to it. Like something that's kind of disjointed. I wouldn't just throw like unicorn vomit on it, or really colors at all. I think this soft white or like warm
Way
white
better
like
than I
looks
expected.
really, really
The
nice.
only thing I would change is maybe spray
Especially
paint
with the
cooler. You can do that for like $7, maybe an hour or two. And then
especially
for
with
$20,
the
you can
all
buy some
black
cable
kind of thing going on.
extensions to match the color profile that you have for your computer.
He is right about this. Cable mods are awesome, especially if you are going for a specific color scheme. Even if you get like a lower end power supply, a non-modular power supply, sometimes you'll get the ketchup and mustard cables, which have all the different colors, and they don't look nice. You can, you can still get like a, 650 watt gold, like good power supply that just has ugly cables. These are great because then these are just visual. They only run like this far. They're just an extension. They just cover the amount of distance that you actually see in your case. So if you're going for a little bit cleaner look, highly recommend. I've done that a few times as well.
Performance-wise, also really good. We tried an array of titles: Cyberpunk, Elden Ring.
1660 Super.
GTA 5 was going to be in there.
It's going to
but
be
we
running
hit
at probably
some
like
technical
low settings,
difficulties.
medium
My
settings.
Rockstar
But
account got hacked literally the night before. So don't be like me, have better password security. Everything was more than playable, and the worst case scenario was Cyberpunk, and that was with high settings.
Elden Ring had an average of 611 FPS. That's insane to me. Siege, 264 frames. Cyberpunk, 47. That makes sense. Final Fantasy, what is that, 14? 121. Civ 6.
Fidelity, FX.
That's,
not
1660
so,
Super gets
changing
work
the
done.
settings, you
And I
can
think going to
definitely
like a
hit 60
3060 if you
FPS
can,
easily.
again, you get
And the cool part, too,
generational
is
and
because we
architectural
have a GTX
improvements.
1660
It's
Super,
going to be
we have
good.
the NVENC encoder, so you can stream really easily while maintaining good performance in all of your games. I think this computer is a really good investment, and it really didn't take that much time or searching for my part. If you want to build a computer like this, now is honestly a good time. There are a few different sites I would recommend. Reddit's Hardware Swap, great place, eBay, and then local classifieds. If you're just searching casually, you'll definitely be able to get this type of performance. As a matter of fact, the only parts that I bought used were the video card, which you can definitely buy for around the price that I got it now, and then the motherboard for about $30. But even for not much more, you can get a new one and it'll work just as well. So overall, very happy with the build. I hope that you guys enjoyed it too.
We did enjoy it.
Inspires you to build your own. Good time to build. I recommend doing it. Even if you go all new, you can get some pretty good parts. So thanks for watching, guys. If you liked it, leave a like. If you loved it, share, subscribe.
Heck yeah, we'll
all
like
that
it
stuff.
and
I'll
subscribe.
see you in the next
You guys should always do that. Like and subscribe. Speaking of liking and subscribing, if you liked this video and you want to see me do more of this, like, subscribe, drop a comment, all the things. If you made it this far, you liked the video. So go ahead and do it. Have a great rest of your day, you guys. Go do something great. Touch some grass. Get outside and exercise. I only say that because I did this morning, and now I feel empowered to say so. Peace.